and I'm going to hand back over to Judith. Judith is filling in for Harriet, who happens to be out in the bush and has a really interesting thing that she's found a population of colobus monkeys that normally only occur in DRC, and she's kind of stuck out there with these monkeys, studying them, and she's given us Judith, and I can promise you, Judith is a good storyteller. So over to you, Judith. I think you can share again. You need to unmute as well.
Okay, thank you, Derek, for the invitation to participate and above all to present to the world. On behalf of Harriet, I would like to extend our apologies that she could not make it today. So on short notice, I had to come in and fill the gap. So I'll start by introducing myself. It looks like I'm the only Ugandan so far on the chat. Maybe some other Ugandan birders will join soon and probably will help me to address some of the questions and queries. So my name is Mirembe Judith. I am the chairperson of the Uganda Women Birders. This is an initiative that we started to promote the number of women participating in nature guiding, above all bird watching as a profession. So we started in May 2013 and the numbers have grown over the years. So away from that, I am an EDGE alumni. EDGE is evolutionary distinct and globally endangered species. I've done research on the conservation of the shoebill, and there was support that was given to support young scientists that are carrying out research on some of these species that are globally threatened and potentially about to go extinct. So this was between 2017 to 2019. I've worked with Nature Uganda, the BirdLife international partner in Uganda, on one of the programs, bird population monitoring in Uganda. I hold a master's in environment and natural resource management. I am a hockey player and a mother of one. Just in case you hear the baby crying, yes, but I can handle that. So moving on. Just to tell you a little bit about Uganda. Uganda is found in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa. To the east is bordered by Kenya, to the north, Southern Sudan, to the west, Democratic Republic of Congo, and to the south, there's Rwanda, Burundi, and Tanzania. So Uganda is about 240,000 square kilometers. So we are probably much smaller than South Africa. South Africa could be 10 times Uganda. But however, despite our small size, we have a great variety of biodiversity, and this is spread all over our national parks. So the areas in green are national parks. In dark green are national parks and game reserves. Uganda has 10 national parks, 12 game reserves. We have 34 important bird areas. We have 2 biosphere reserves. That would be Queen Elizabeth National Park and Mount Elgon. So the picture that you see to the right is the Royal Mile in Budongo Forest. So the Royal Mile, like the name says, was an area that was used by the king of Bunyoro, one of the kingdoms in Uganda, Bunyoro Kingdom. It was used by the king for hunting, for his hunting leisure, for fun. And again, he used this route to escape the colonialists as he was escaping. So this is very significant culturally, and it is a good birding spot, as I will later on elaborate. Just quick facts about Uganda. We are hospitable and happy people. Our climate is hot and wet. We have 2 rainfall peaks, which is March to May, and then September to November. We receive rain for all throughout the year. And this is also influenced by the large water bodies, the large forest reserves. All those influence the local climate. We have a rich culture where we have at least 56 tribes, and each of these have their own cultures, their own cuisines and food. We have a good transport network that connects all these national parks to ease the movement of people within the country, and the country is very secure. So among the significant areas that we have is the Albertine Rift. So the Albertine, as displayed on the previous map, you realize most of our protected areas are within the Albertine Rift. And this is a very rich area in biodiversity. We have at least, it holds more than half of Africa's bird species because of the diversity of habitats, which range from savanna to rainforests, to wetlands, water bodies, large water bodies, and many others. So the Albertine Rift is habitat to the Albertine Rift endemics. These are special birds that can only be seen within that rift. So to the right is the Newman's warbler, also known as the short-tailed warbler. It's easily identified by the two lines, one above the eye, the white one, and the black one through the eye. So it is the warbler is it's a forest interior species that you would find within the montane forests. It looks like a Camaroptera, but because of its short tail and big head, you can easily distinguish it from a Camaroptera. They stay close to or on ground. You would not find them in a canopy, but of course, birds move, you can find them elsewhere. So you can see a bit of its habitat. You're seeing some moths, you're seeing some ferns, which would probably be close to the ground. So moving on to the next slide. The bird to the left is a red-necked sparfowl, also known as the red-necked francolin. This can be seen in most of our savanna parks, like Mburo National Park. You can find it at the forest edges. You can find it in Queen Elizabeth National Park, Murchison Falls National Park. It's one of those easy to find and photograph birds. Overall species, we have over 1,080 species of birds, of which 11% are of which we hold 11% of the world's total species and 50% of Africa's species. So we have a great network of bird guides, and these are freelance or guides that work for specific companies and site guides. So it is easy for people to move from one conservation area to another and find excellent guides throughout the country. Our birds breed all year round because of the favorable climate. Although some birds may be specific, we may require some specific breeding needs and breed in some months. So I will do this presentation in such a way that it's like a travel plan. Since most of some of these places, birdwatching places or birdwatching areas are far apart. So we break the journey by making stops in some of the other birdwatching areas. So when you come to Uganda, you land at the Entebbe International Airport. It is the only one we have as per now, but there's one other one that is being developed. So when you get to Entebbe after a long flight, someone needs to relax a little bit. So the botanical garden gives you an orientation of the general overview of birds in Uganda. You get to see most of the common birds, and because the botanical gardens has a variety of habitats, there's some bit of forest, there's a bit of shores of the Lake Victoria, so you get some shore birds, you get some forest birds, you get some urban birds that are specialized for urban areas like the hooded vulture, the pied crow, the marabou stork. So the notable birds that you'll see at the botanical gardens, the bird on the right is an African grey parrot. So the grey parrots are currently globally threatened because of a pet trade, and a lot of parrots die along the way as they're being trafficked to destination countries. So these birds are very special because they can mimic many of the human languages. So people want to keep them as pets. So the botanical gardens give you a feel of an urban forestry project that you will see some. It's rare that you can find a forest within cities with the rate of development of urban settlements in urban areas and the rural-urban sprawl that is happening now because of the increased population. Other bird species that you'll find within the botanical gardens is the Ross's turaco, the great blue turaco, the African harrier hawk, or known to the South Africans as gymnogene. You'll find plenty of hornbills, the black and white cusp hornbill, the African pied hornbill, and the crowned hornbill. You'll find kingfishers like the African pygmy and the woodland kingfisher. And the shorebirds, you'll find pied kingfishers. You can find Madagascar bee eaters. You can find striated herons, squawk herons, black-winged teals, African jacana, and many others. So when you leave the botanical gardens can either be done in the morning or an afternoon trip. So the next day you head over to Mavamba wetland. Mavamba wetland is an IBA. It's an important bird area and a wetland of international importance on the shores of Lake Victoria. And it provides one of the biggest breeding areas in Uganda. So the other bits about Mavamba wetland is that it has at least over 300 species of birds. And among these is the shoebill, the rufous-bellied heron, papyrus gonolek, lesser jacana, blue swallow, which is also globally threatened species that breeds within Southern Africa and comes to Uganda during the non-breeding period, so we usually get the blue swallows from May up to around September. The other interesting bit about Mavamba is that it has a well-established local community which provide an authentic local canoe experience as you look for the shoebill. So there are trails created within the wetland which you can use to give you better opportunities of seeing the waterfowl, among which is the prehistoric shoebill. So this is the rufous-bellied heron. So the rufous-bellied heron is common in dense marshes and flooded grasslands, and oftentimes hard to see. And then you have the papyrus gonolek. The papyrus gonolek, we have two gonoleks in Uganda, the black-headed gonolek and the papyrus gonolek. So the papyrus gonolek is endemic to papyrus swamps of East Africa. It is similar to a yellow-crowned gonolek, except for the white wing bar that you may not easily see because of the positioning of the bird.
Judith, are you still with us? We seem to have lost your sound. Oh, you muted.
Thank you, Derek. I think I muted by mistake. Thank you for letting me in.
Sorry, and while I have interrupted you, I think your cell phone's a little too close to your laptop, and we're picking up cell phone noise in the signal. So maybe if you could just move it a little bit further away from your laptop.
Okay. You just let me know if it continues. I hope that's a little bit better. So the papyrus gonolek looks a bit like the yellow crown gonolek, but you can easily distinguish them by the white wing bar on the papyrus gonolek, which is not present on the yellow crown gonolek. So the papyrus gonolek is near threatened, according to the International Union of Conservation of Nature, the IUCN Red Data List. And this is because of the threats that wetland habitats are faced with. So moving on, just to talk a little bit more about the shoebill. So shoebills grow up to their height, they're about 3 to 5 feet tall. The wingspan is almost twice the height, which is about maybe 8 feet long. That is how long the wingspan can be. It's a very huge bird with an average weight of 5 to 6 kilograms. They feed on fish. So their habitat, their principal habitat is they stay in shallow vegetation where the waters are shallow and with floating vegetation, but the vegetation should be able to hold their weight. Or if you find them in deep water, you'll find them in areas of deep water with emergent vegetation on which they can stand. So shoebills prefer to hunt in poorly oxygenated water, so that as the fish comes out of water to breathe, they take the opportunity to grab the fish and yeah, that's maybe a lunch or dinner for the day. The other bit about the shoebill is that they gain their sexual maturity at 3 to 4 years. And most shoebills that are sexually mature or are breeding have a deep yellow or orangey eye. Otherwise, the normal eye of the shoebill is a creamy gray to white. It is not this deep yellow. So shoebills lay 1 to 3 eggs, but oftentimes are able to only raise 1 chick. And this is because of the sibling rivalry, or something they call siblicide. So what happens is that the eggs are laid with as many days as 5 days interval. So, and incubation starts right away. Incubation is done by both the male and the female. So when the first egg that was laid first tends to hatch out before the other, and the chicks, because of competition for resources, will kill the other, which is called siblicide. So oftentimes they're able to raise only one chick. And the other bit about their breeding, they will often breed at the end. They start their breeding at the end of the rainy seasons to avoid high water levels taking away their nests or taking away their chicks. So they tend to avoid breeding in the rainy seasons. They'll breed at the end of the rainy season, so that by the time the dry season is done, the chicks are fully fledged. So the shoebill is threatened by a number of factors, illegal trade among them. The others is pressure from the fishermen who may intentionally chase it away for some reasons like competition, or some that look at it as a bad omen. And again, sometimes it is unintentional because shoebills are very sensitive. They are solitary birds and tend to be very sensitive to any form of disturbance, either noise from people or noise from transport boats and many others. And then the practice of banning also tends to cause harm to the shoebill. It causes mortality, causes habitat loss, and also reduces reproductive rates. So shoebills in Uganda are found in at least 12 of the important bird areas. Notably, you can find them in Mavamba wetland, you can find them along other wetlands on the shores of Lake Victoria, you can find them in Murchison Falls National Park at the Nile Delta, you can find them in Queen Elizabeth National Park within the wetlands. Those would be the Lake George and Edward wetlands around. You can find them within the Isasha sector of wetlands, and as habitat changes, they're also learning to adapt to new habitats. You can find them in seasonally flooded grasslands as well as rice farms. That would be in Uganda and other countries where they are found. So in Africa, they're found in about 8 countries globally, and Southern Sudan holds the biggest population. And Uganda gives one of the best chances to see the shoebills because the habitat is easy to access, and there's a network of community guides that can take you to see the shoebill. And those are some, the shoebill tour, the ecotourism at such sites is one of the reasons how the communities are able to protect such charismatic species. The other countries you can find the shoebill, you can find it in Tanzania, in Zambia, in Rwanda, you can find them in Burundi as vagrants, and Kenya as well, they occur as vagrants. That's a little bit about the shoebill, and I had to talk more about it because I'm very passionate, and since I've done some research about it, it gives me pleasure to always talk a little bit more about it. So at the shoebill wetland, you can spend maybe half day, or to give more opportunities of sighting the bird, you can give it 2 days, just so that you don't miss it if it happens to be your dream bird. So moving on, we go to Mpanga Forest. Mpanga Forest is close to the shoebill place, and is a place that you can explore as you come from Mavamba wetland. So Mpanga Forest is notable for the hornbill species, the black and white casque hornbill, the one you see in the picture. So the name is after the casque on the bill, which is so it is a black and white casque hornbill because of the casque on the bill, this extension. The hornbills, these hornbills, just like any other hornbills, nest in tree cavities. And one of the sexes can stay inside, and then they seal off the entrance with either clay or mud to avoid predators and other foreign animals coming in. So the hornbill feeds majorly their major food in Panga forest. Hornbills are omnivores. They feed on insects, they feed on fruits, and Panga forest has quite large number of fruiting trees on which these hornbills go to eat the berries. And again, the cultivation areas around Mpanga forest also provide habitats for these hornbills. The other species that you would see in Mpanga forest are the Narina trogon, the colorful Narina trogon, the yellow spotted barbet, the green helia and Turacos sterosis, the black-billed turaco, and the great blue turaco. So from Mpanga forest, you can either you can do the 1 day is enough from Mpanga forest, and then you would head over to Lake Mburo. So Lake Mburo National Park is one of those areas which has seen a successful coexistence of wildlife and domestic animals. So you often find zebras feeding with impalas, feeding with cows and goats and sheep from the neighboring communities. So Lake Mburo National Park is one of those parks, the smallest savanna park, with an entire lake located within the national park. It has over 317 bird species. Notable of these are the African fish eagle. So this is a family of African fish eagles. And just like any birds of prey, the females are bigger than the males. And as you may have heard before, the African fish eagles can easily share a nest, but cannot share the same fish, which is quite very funny. You would expect a family to have the same meal, to share, and to live in harmony, but they cannot share the same fish. However, they can occupy the same nest and everything else is okay, but sharing the same food, no, no, no. So the other birds that you'd find in the Lake Mburo is the emerald spotted wood dove, the shining blue kingfisher, and the African finfoot. So the African finfoot is a secretive bird that you will see along rivers and streams. But most of the times you find it in densely vegetated streams and rivers with overhanging vegetation, and sometimes because of its cryptic nature may be hard to see. So this is a female African finfoot. The male would have a darker. The male has a darker throat and very easy to distinguish from between the sexes. So they're widespread in Uganda, but not very easy to see. You can find them in Lake Mburo National Park. You can find them along local river streams like the Seziwa River. You can find them within Chivale, the small rivers within Chivale Forest National Park. You can find them in Machon Falls at the Nile Delta. And within Africa, you can find them in at least southern part of Africa as well as a part of the West Africa. So to the right, you have the brown-chested lapwing. The brown-chested lapwing is an intra-African migrant that comes from West Africa. And in Uganda, they majorly come from October to December. And oftentimes you easily, they're common in burnt areas. And not very easy to spot. So you have to pay a lot of attention to burnt areas if you want to see the brown-chested lapwings. So in Lake Mburo, you can spend an average of 2 to 3 days. And then that would give you enough rest to head over to the next national park, which is Bwindi Impenetrable Forest National Park. So Bwindi was gazetted in 1991 as a national park, and later in 1994 was gazetted as a UNESCO heritage site. So Bwindi is on the border, it is in southwestern Uganda, on the border of Congo and Rwanda. And it is located within the Albertine Rift. So the altitude of Bwindi is between 1,190 to 2,700 meters above sea level. Bwindi has over 360 species of birds and holds the biggest number of our Albertine Rift endemics, at least 23 of the Albertine Rift endemics. And within Bwindi, there is a wide range of accommodation to maximize birding opportunities. This accommodation is within the park and outside at the park boundaries. And you can easily get birds fly over to your balcony, to your cottage, and this gives you a leisurely birding at pleasure. Even when you're tired, you can still see a few birds that will come over and visit. So in Bwindi, you need an average of 5 days, because Bwindi, we have two sections. We have the Buhoma section and the Ruhija section. So the Ruhija is at a much higher altitude, which makes it easier to see some of these Albertine Rift endemics. So to maximize Bwindi, you would need to go to the two areas. So the bird to the right is the Abyssinian ground thrush, what was formerly known as the Kivu ground thrush. And a little bit about this thrush is that it is similar, very similar to the Oberlanders, which is the Albertine Rift endemic. The Oberlanders is the Albertine Rift endemic, but because of the absence of the black line through the eye, that is how you're able to tell the two species apart. They look very close, but the Oberlanders has a black line, black vertical line that goes through the eye. So this Abyssinian ground thrush, you can find it in Uganda, you can find it in Kenya, Ethiopia, as it is a major resident of montane forests. Moving on to the next, so you'd find it in undergrowth, just like any other thrushes. You'd find it in undergrowth and maybe lower story of the trees. So moving on to the top left is the regal sunbird. As the definition, it is really beautiful. You'd find it in bamboo and forest clearings, and it is very common at an altitude of 1,500 to 3,000 meters above sea level. So to the right of the regal sunbird is the Mubwindi swamp. So the Mubwindi swamp is located within Ruhija. This is the special habitat for this little bird below, the African green broadbill, also known as the grower's broadbill. So the grower's broadbill, according to IUCN, is vulnerable, although other scholars mention that it is endangered. And this small bird that you see is very hard to see. So you have to hike, you have to do the swamp hike. And at least you'll find it at the altitude of at least above 2,000 meters above sea level. So this one, You cannot find it in the other section of Bwindi, which is the Buhoma. It is only on the other side of Bwindi, which is Buhija, and you have to do the hike to the swamp. It's a bit steep, being in the mountainous areas, but sometimes comes out of the swamp and comes closer to the park boundaries and can easily be seen along clear trails. So the African broadbill, especially, you find it along primary forests, near the swamps or streams, and oftentimes will be overlooked because of its color. You can mistake it for vegetation unless if you hear it calling. And so these are just a few from Bwindi. There are very many other bird species. I'll just move on to Queen Elizabeth National Park. So the Queen Elizabeth National Park was named after the Queen Elizabeth in 1954. It has a diverse of ecosystems which range from savanna to forest, wetlands, lakes, and others. So it has over 600 species of birds, and the bird to the right is the greater painted snipe. So the greater painted snipe, the female, has a more striking color compared to the male, with a rich chestnut neck and breast. So the bird that you're seeing in the picture is the male of the greater painted snipe, easily identified by the cryptic color and with a conspicuous golden V on the back, this that you're looking at. And you can ably distinguish this greater painted snipe from other snipes by this white eye line extending to the ear convex. So the painted snipes can be found within small pools of water within the park. You can find them along the Kazinga Channel on the sandbanks. They have been seen at the salt pans at the Lake Katwe Salt Lake, and they're not very easy to see. You have to know what you're looking for. The other bird species, the red-cap lark, you can find the Veros eagle owl, you can find the African crake, you can find the rufous nape lark, and many others. So another great habitat within Queen Elizabeth National Park is the Kazinga Channel. The Kazinga Channel is a natural water channel which connects Lakes Edward and George, and it's as long as 40 kilometers. So the Kazinga Channel attracts a number of congregations of migratory bird species, such as African skimmers that you're seeing in the picture, gray-headed gulls, a number of species of terns, and it's a very good place to photograph both wildlife, the mammals, the birds, as well as the fishing community. The Kazinga, because the name Kazinga comes from the local word, which means a fishing village. Kazinga is a small island and can also refer to as a fishing village. So then we also get congregations of lesser flamingos. The lesser flamingos can easily be distinguished from the greater flamingos by the deep red beaks, and the lesser flamingos are also much smaller than the greater flamingos. So the flamingos we get, unfortunately, do not breed in Uganda. Lake Natron holds a very large population of breeding flamingos, and flamingos in Uganda majorly come October to April. So currently, this picture was taken by was taken by a colleague from Nature Uganda, and this was taken just last month in February during their water bird monitoring counts. The other bit about flamingos is they feed on algae. So oftentimes you'll find them in alkaline lakes and rivers. So because of their specific habitat, you may not easily see them. They're not widely spread all over the world. And next we are going to Semiliki Forest National Park. So ideally in Queen Elizabeth, you need about 3 to 4 days, 3 to 4, 5 days, depending on your interests. Because within Queen Elizabeth National Park, there is a forest. You have, you can explore the Kazinga Channel, you can explore the Malamagambo Forest. You can explore the different tracks within the park, and all this reward you differently with a number of bird species. So moving on to Semiliki Forest National Park. Semiliki is located extreme west at the border with Congo. So if you want to see Congo species without a passport, without a visa, you just have to come to Semiliki Forest National Park. And Semiliki National Park forms the eastern extension of the Ituri Forest in Congo. It's a very small park with 220 square kilometers, and its altitude is very low at 670 to 760 meters above sea level. And it has over 441 species of birds. So because of this altitude, it forms part of the lowland tropical forest and tends to have moist patches of swamp within the wetland, which attracts some of the specialist birds. So Semiliki, you can use 2 to 4 days. And the trails within the forests are very good, very clear. So as you move, it can accommodate group birding or individual birding. Yes, so this is one of the trails within Semiliki. You can see that it has plenty of undergrowth and a few tree canopies, long, tall trees. So some of the specialists or highlights of Semiliki is the African piculet, this one to the top left. So the African piculet is one of the smallest birds and very common in forest and secondary growth. It is restricted to Semiliki. It is one of those birds that if you look on the map, you'll find that it is not that easy to sight. Actually was thought, if you look at most of the maps, you'll find a dot or an X. And then below the African piculet, you have the red-billed dwarf hornbill. So red-billed dwarf hornbill, just like most of other species in Semiliki, these are West African species that come from West Africa. So Semiliki forms the boundary between West African species and East African species. So most of the species that come from West Africa make a stop at Semiliki because of the habitat. So the red-billed dwarf hornbill is also one of those rare species. And Semiliki is also known to have many other species of hornbills, like the black-wattled hornbill, the black cast. Oh, oops, sorry. Yes, so the white-side hornbills and many others. To the top right is the To the top right is the rufous-sided broadbill. This is another species of the broadbills that we have within Uganda, but also it is very specific and limited to Semiliki. It is primary forest, and often you'll see it close to damp places and streams. It's a high canopy species and may not easily be seen unless it calls, just like any other broadbills. And then below the broadbill, you have the white-throated blue swallow. The white-throated blue swallow, within Semiliki, you can see it close to the oxbow lakes, and will oftentimes sit on submerged rocks and overhanging branches of trees floating within the water. And oftentimes you'll see it majorly near forest rivers, or you can call them mangroves. So this blue swallow is also a species of West African habitats. Moving on to the next one is the Chivale Forest National Park. I'll try to be a little swift since my time is almost fast spent. So Chivale Forest National Park is also known as the primate capital, with at least 30 species of primates. Common among these is the chimpanzee, and it has 375 species of birds. And it forms, so Chivale joins Queen Elizabeth and forms one of those long wildlife corridors. So you easily have movement of wildlife like forest elephants. In Chivale, you can stay for averagely 3 to 4 days, depending on your needs. So among the notable species seen is the black bee-eater, easily identified by the red throat and the blue on the belly. So the black bee-eater can also be seen in other forests, such as Budongo, such as Bwindi, and as well as Semiliki. So the specialities of Chivale is one of those birds that you'll always look out for in Chivale is the green-breasted peter. Just like any other peters, it is hard to see, and you have to look out for its display to be able to see it. So a trip to see the peter will often begin as early as 5 a.m. You're in the forest, and unless it displays, it becomes quite tasking to look for it. So as most of you know Harriet is referred as the Peter girl because of the time that she spent working and researching about peters within Chivale Forest National Park, and also discovered subpopulations of the peter within the park. So peters are known to breed from February to April and June to August. And these are very good times for people that want to see peters to at least the 80% of seeing them. Outside that, it will become very difficult to see it because you can only listen to it displaying, and this is usually done during the breeding season. Otherwise, most of the times they are quiet. And at the boundaries of Chivale National Park is Bigodi Wetland. So Bigodi Wetland is one of those wetlands that has been managed and has proved the community-based approach to management of natural resources. It is managed by CAFRET, the Chivale Association for Rural and Environmental Development. So this is a product that helps the community around Chivale to appreciate and protect natural resources within and outside the park. It has over 200 species of birds, and sometimes it gets quite tiring birding within the national park because of the tall trees and the limited undergrowth. So Bigodi offers you chances of seeing those some of those difficult birds that may be hard to see within the Chivale forest. Birds such as the white-tailed thrush, the elusive white-spotted flufftail, which is very hard to see unless you would often find it on pools within and slow-flowing streams of water. And then you have the great blue turaco, which is in the picture. So the turaco is all turacos are beautiful birds, and among those that are common in Uganda is the great blue turaco, which can be seen within the Godi wetland and other areas. Can be seen at the forest edges, would be seen in forests as well as cultivated areas. So next is Budongo. Next is Budongo forest. So Budongo forest is a medium altitude moist tropical rainforest and provides an excellent trail, the Royal Mile, for bird watching, which is wide, can accommodate big groups of bird watchers or even a small group. It has at least over 360 species of birds, and among these, the special birds you look out for is the Ituri batis, chestnut-capped flycatcher, chocolate-backed kingfisher, white-thighed hornbill, Huvel's Iladopsis. So in the picture, we have the chocolate-backed kingfisher, high canopy species, and it is easy to identify because of its colors, but oftentimes you may confuse its call with the blue-breasted kingfisher, which also occurs within most of our forests. So it is a very high canopy species, and you can easily find it by the call, when it calls. And then you have this little tiny one, the African dwarf kingfisher. Can find it middle story, and yeah, it is an easier one to see compared to the chocolate back. So the other birds that you'd find is the Uganda woodland warbler. This is endemic, and yes, a very good bird to see. So this is just to show you the Royal Mile, the trail. And like I said, we have a very good network of site guides all over the country. You can have excellent birding wherever you go within the country. So the trees are tall, very tall, but you also have a bit of undergrowth and middle story. And because of these big trails, you also have opportunities of seeing birds crossing from one area to another, which makes it easy to find. And then we go to Murchison Falls National Park. This is the largest national park in Uganda. And it is famous because of the waterfalls that are within the park. And it is bisected by the Victoria Nile. So you have the southern bank and the northern bank. It is majorly woodlands with borassus palms and acacias. And then in Murchison Falls, you find at least over 460 species of birds. Notable of these is the northern carmine bee-eaters, white-crested turaco, and in the picture is the Pell's fishing owl. In Murchison Falls, you can also find the shoebill. This will be along the Nile Delta, and many other birds. If you do a night game drive, you have chances of seeing a pennant-winged nightjar. Other birds that can be seen is the Abyssinian brown hornbill, which is very similar to the southern brown hornbill, except for the blue wattles. So this is the female Abyssinian brown hornbill. The male would have some blue or purple wattles with some red around here. And then this below is the gray-crowned crane. Gray-crowned cranes are monogamous, and they are the national bird for Uganda because they bear colors of the Uganda flag. So the cranes inhabit wetlands, and because of the many threats faced with wetlands, the cranes are among the birds which have a fast declining population because of the threats. And then further northeast is Kidepo Valley National Park. So this is about 1,442 square kilometers with 475 species of birds. And among these, the common ones are Clapperton's francolin, rose-winged parakeet. And in the picture, you have an Abyssinian roller, one of those nice birds that you would not miss in Kidepo. You'd find other birds like the foxy cisticola, fox kestrel, and many other birds. So away from Kidepo, as now you're coming down, this is still northeast, Pianupe Game Reserve, Maseniko, and Moroto. These areas are also very rich, and the most notable feature of these areas, the bird that everybody goes to look for, is the fox's weaver. So the fox's weaver is the only bird that is only endemic to Uganda. There's only one bird that is only endemic to Uganda. This is the fox's weaver. So until recent, the fox's weaver was thought to have been locally extinct. But recently, was it last year or 2018, was photographed by one of the bird guides, and word went around and everybody picked up their cameras and we all wanted to see the fox's weaver. So research has been done by Nature Uganda, and yes, there's a small population of fox's weavers that they will keep monitoring to make sure they stay protected. So the fox's weaver are very specific to their habitats. They nest in a species of acacia called Acacia repanolobium. And within these acacias, there are these small thorns, these small cones on thorns that you see. They contain ants on which the weaver feeds. So other bird species that can be found within these areas is the Karamoja pallis, which is also a range restricted species, the fox's kestrel, the purple grenadier, and any other species that you would have seen in Kidepo and the northeastern part of Uganda. Moving on is the Mavira Forest Reserve. So the Mavira Forest Reserve is one of those forest reserves that is also located close to urban areas. It has over 315 species of birds, and specialties of this area is the Nahant's Harriet or the Nahant's francolin that also occurs in Budongo Forest, but not an easy bird to see. Shining blue kingfisher, woodland kingfisher, the blue-breasted kingfisher. So the picture, the bird that you have in the picture is the shining blue kingfisher. So there are lots of kingfishers that almost look like this, like the malachite kingfisher, but the malachite is much smaller than this, and also the blue does not go all the way to the back. And then you have the dwarf kingfisher, you have the pygmy, but it is easy to identify them by the bill. So the shining blue kingfisher has a black bill, as you can see in the picture, and the pygmy kingfisher has an orange bill. That would be the mature. It has orange or pinkish ear coverts, and this blue does not extend all the way to the back, and the orange to the belly is very bright. And then the other kingfisher that looked a lot similar, like this shining blue, is the malachite kingfisher, which also has an orange bill. It has a white throat, a very bright orangey belly, and the blue is not as dark as the blue on the shining blue kingfisher. Other good birds that you can see in Mavira is the tiny tithilia, the Jamesons, and the chestnut wattle eyes. So I will just play a video of the shoebill. Shoebills are usually silent and will only clap their bills. This is usually done to show dominance. It is a display done at nests when they are breeding as a form of greeting or communication. And they just clap the bills together. So this is just to say thank you so much for listening to my presentation. And you're all welcome to come to Uganda anytime we decide. The bird guides are ready to take you around the country. So I will just play the video of the shoebill, and that will be the end of my. So this particular video of the shoebill was taken at the Uganda Wildlife Education Center, the Entebbe Zoo. And the shoebills are kept at the zoo. These shoebills that are kept at the center are shoebills that have been rescued from people that are trafficking them or going to sell them off. Others are shoebills that have been that have probably fallen sick within the natural habitat, so they take them at the center to treat them and later release them back into the wild. And the unfortunate bit is that these shoebills kept at the center, none of them has been successfully bred. And even when you read literature all over the world, wherever shoebills are kept in the zoo, none of them has been none of them has successfully done breeding, except one which is talked of, probably forgotten the country, but I think the young did not live long. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. It's been a privilege. Thank you for the opportunity. And yes, we are always ready to share with you anything whenever called upon. Thank you, Derek, for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure speaking to this. It's been
Thank
a
you,
pleasure to this great audience. All right.
Thank you, Judith, and really interesting presentation and a nice journey through the birds that we could see in Uganda. I wonder if you could just stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
And then maybe we can put on our videos and we can take some questions. If there's a few too many people in the room for me to just open it up for voice questions. So if you don't mind, just put a question in the chat and we'll pick it up. So I'm just going to scroll back through the chat and see. I know there were some questions earlier on. Bear with me while I find them. Tell us more about the touring options to see this area and these species, guided tours, etc. Who to contact. That's from David Fiedler.
Okay. So the tours range from a few days to can be even 30 days. So you decide, you can give a list of species of birds that you want to see, and then we design for you, we tailor-make for you an itinerary to maximize the opportunities. Or you can choose the parks or the places that you want to go to. We give you options of the birds that can be seen there, and we break it down into the number of days. And also the number of days depends on the cost of the tour or the type of accommodation, because all these factors determine how much you pay for each trip, and bookings of trip depend very much on the cost. So, but the average birding trip for you to maximize all these habitats and opportunities, at least 10 to 14 days.
Judith, I'm going to put you on the spot. I'm going to invite you to make a little blog post about how to make how to plan birding trip to Uganda. Maybe that is something that would benefit everybody, and it might also get you some visitors. How about that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I put you on the spot. I'm sorry, but yes, that might be one way to answer the question, because it's difficult to fully answer that kind of question in a verbal way. I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody here. I'm just scrolling down. Can all these habitats be seen on one trip? And a couple of people, I think, are your country fellows who have answered that question. But if you want to comment, please do. And then,
yes, all these habitats can be seen on one trip, because as you traverse different parts of the country, there are different habitats along the way. We have major water bodies like the Lake Victoria that influences the habitat, the wetland habitats, the papyrus swamps, and then you have the forest. Within the forests, there are microhabitats like the small pools of water, the small rivers, and all these provide different habitat for the different bird species. And then within, sometimes in the middle of the forest, then you have the savanna. So all these are transitions, or you can call them ecotones between the different habitats. So yes, it is very possible to see all those habitats within the same trip. An example is the Queen Elizabeth National Park. Within Queen Elizabeth National Park, you have freshwater lakes, you have salty lakes, and you have a forest, and you have a savanna. So all those are just within one park. Yeah.
And let's see what else we've got here. Sorry, the electricity came back on and it kind of surprised me. There's a couple of people asking for contact info. I think if you can mail me like a website or phone numbers or whatever that you can be contacted on, I will include it in a mail to the people that have asked that question.
Yeah. Okay.
Lots of people saying thank you for a great presentation. What a beautiful country. Well organized. Thank you. Oh, here's one from Faraz. Looks like difficult conditions for bird photography. I'm excited by a challenge and anxious to visit Uganda someday. Great presentation. Okay, it's not a question, it's a statement. Thank you, Faraz. Yeah, I think that's all the questions. Yep. So it looks like we're done unless there are any other last questions. Okay, so Judith has just put her email address in the chat, which you can use to get in touch with her and organize a trip that way. So maybe that's the answer to the question. Okay, so any last questions? Otherwise, I think we will thank Judith and make like a shoe bill and give a little clap and say thank you very much, Judith. I hope we will see you again on Learn the Birds. That's for Judith as well as everybody else. I think, Judith, there's some stories that you have still yet to tell. So yeah. I'm sure we will see you again on Learn the Birds. And thanks everybody for coming. And hopefully we will see some of you at least next week, where we have 2 more really interesting webinars lined up on Wednesday and Thursday. So good night, good afternoon. I think in Hong Kong, good morning, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.